From the center of the universe, Toronto, Ontario, Canada, this is the SDM Show with your host, Rob Cairns. The SDM Show focuses on business, life, productivity, digital marketing, WordPress, and more. Sit back, relax, grab your favorite drink, and enjoy the show. Here is Rob.
Hey everybody, Rob Cairns here. I'm the founder, CEO, and chief creator of Amazing Ideas at Stunning Digital Marketing. In this episode, I sit down with a lady of many talents, Stephanie Hudson of FocusWP and more. So grab a drink, sit back, relax, and enjoy the great conversation. This episode of the SDM Show is sponsored by Stunning Digital Marketing, the agency to handle all your WordPress website security needs. Go on over to stunningdigitalmarketing.com and find out how we can help you secure your website so you no longer have an issue with backups, being hacked, or your website being compromised. That's stunningdigitalmarketing.com. Hey everybody, Rob Cairns here, and today I'm here with my good friend Stephanie Hudson of FocusWP and more, which we'll get to in a minute. How are you, Stephanie?
I'm doing so good, Rob. Happy Friday to you.
Yeah, happy Friday. So before we get to a big announcement, because I like teasers here, let's talk about how you got into WordPress and your WordPress origin story. One of my favorite questions.
The WordPress origin story. It's funny that you just asked me that because I was just literally thinking today, like maybe 2 hours ago, I was thinking, I really can't remember when I switched over to WordPress. And I literally thought I should figure that out because that's a thing that people ask. So that's crazy that you asked it to me 2 hours later. What I do know is that around 2010 to 2012, I was working at Georgia Tech in Atlanta, Georgia. I was a web developer for the College of Engineering. I was the web developer. I was the entire tech. I was outside of engineers and admin. I was it. Like that was me.
Yeah.
If anybody needed anything remotely right-brained, I was the go-to. But I also was building the website, doing graphics and stuff like that. And we built the College of Engineering site in Drupal. And so it wasn't at that point, it was shortly thereafter that I happened upon WordPress. And like I said, I don't know the exact day, but boy, I never looked back. That's for sure. It was that was a one-way street for me.
Yeah, it's interesting how people get in, and it's funny. I have a very technical background I was sharing with you, and believe it or not, I don't miss things like server administration, coding, and I don't do
searching for that missing semicolon for hours at 3 a.m.
Oh, I'm an old school COBOL programmer, and in those days it was periods. So I can't tell you. We had a guy who used to leave his coding up in the computer lab back in the 80s on school. And yours truly went in and removed the period in the middle of a pile of code and just kind of let it sit.
So mean.
I think it took him like 3 hours just to figure it out. Oh, if you want meaner.
You guys heard it here first. Do not cross Rob Cairns.
Yeah, thank you. You want meaner? We had a guy in high school, and in those days, we still had a punch card on an IBM 1130. And our teacher used to say, number your punch cards on the back in case you ever dropped them. This guy wouldn't do it. So one day we took his deck and shuffled it when he went to the washroom. So
brutal.
The things techs do, it's just, I've been doing it that long that I've done work on terminals, I've done work in big mainframes, I've done work on big machines. It doesn't matter. It's just fun.
I mean, I thought I was old because I started with dial-up internet, Rob. But
So I started up on.
You win.
I actually started up on CompuServe and Genie, and I was before the internet for a couple years. I was involved in the old FidoNet network, which was a network
I
where
don't
we
even know
moved
that one.
mail, and I actually moved the mail between networks for Toronto for a couple of years. So I've been at it a while,
Wow.
and so yeah.
I feel I'm a Gen Xer, and I feel like I was some people say like, "Oh, I was born in the wrong generation," or they're an old soul or this. I feel like I was born exactly where I was supposed to be. I think I'm so fortunate because I grew up with, a corded phone
Hmm.
and VCR when it like first came out. We were so fancy.
That's
My
true.
dad
Yeah.
splurged and got us a VCR when we were kids, and like I have all these things, but we just went outside and rode our bikes, and we didn't wear helmets, and it was nothing was captured on social media during my chubby, awkward prepubescent years. It's like, but then it all happened when I was young enough for it to be easy to adopt. We had AOL and instant messaging, and that's how I learned to type. Because you really I mean, had a class on it or whatever, but like that's when you learn how to type, because you
Yeah.
got to get your joke in before your friends say something else. You got to be able to like communicate fast.
Remember the
So
days of ICQ and IRC?
For sure. Yeah, totally. All of those. I was more of an AIM girl. That was where my friends were. And I never got super into MySpace. I
Me
had
neither.
an account, but I wasn't like blinging mine out and doing all that stuff. But yeah, to come up during all of those things, as a teenager, and we had my brother and I are close in age, we're only a year and a half apart. So we shared a car, and at some point my folks got us a car phone. It wasn't a cell phone or a mobile phone, it was a car phone,
Yeah.
and it stayed in the car. And so we shared that, and that was our first, and it was actually a phone. Like that's what you used it for, was to make calls. And so I came up with all of that, so it was like a more of a gradual thing, and everything was just
Hmm.
natural progression of things. So folks a little bit older, it was a little more difficult. Folks a little bit younger, they don't have any concept of like not having a smartphone and all this technology in our pockets. Have you ever seen the video of the two teenage boys and their family? There's like some contest and they're videoing them, and they give them a rotary phone,
Yeah, I
and
saw that.
if they can make a phone call in like 60 seconds or whatever it is, then they win. Whatever. I don't remember what it was for, but it's hilarious to watch them like try and figure this out, that they don't know how to, you know,
Yep.
so anyway, so yeah, I think I was born right on time. Not that anybody asked, but
Yeah, me too, to some degree. I mean, I was sharing a story with a friend of mine the other day. When I went to high school in Montreal, I played sports after school, and we often needed the phone to call home. Now kids just whip out a phone out of their pocket. I used to walk into the phys ed office and look up my instructor and said, "I don't want to walk down to the main hall and use the payphone. Can I use the phone on your desk?"
Mhm.
you know, things like that. And we were all fine. I think sometimes technology puts undue expectations on kids and
Mhm.
an unfair expectations. I can share with the story I know of in a school recently, and I won't say where to protect the school, but the kids got caught videotaping fights in the playground on phones and posting them on Instagram.
Mhm.
And this is a school that has a no device policy on school property. So, it's hard. I think it's harder for kids today to grow up than it was like in our generations, to be honest with you. So,
Yeah, it's a different world. It really is.
yeah. So I wanted to jump into something. Before we went there,
Yeah.
you were sharing with me this really cool announcement, and I'm so happy for you. So I'm going to let you
Thanks.
share it and tell us how it came about.
Well, as of the beginning of May 2020, I have been brought on as the Chief Marketing Officer of Bertha AI.
That's incredible.
I'm super pumped about it. The technology is just, it's so exciting. I've used lots of different AI copywriters and things like that. This one has the top of the line engine behind it. It just got a new update today, actually. So by the time you guys are listening to this, it'll be old news. But um, the team behind Bertha is really keeping everything as cutting edge as possible and up to the minute, current with all the tech. But so I'm excited to be able to like bring that out into the world, help educate people on how to use it and how to get the most out of it and stuff. So yeah, I'm super pumped, and I get to hang out with my pals, Andrew Palmer and Vito Peleg, who are great guys. So we have a good time.
Two people I really adore actually in this space as well as you. So I mean,
And
I think
we're going
I
to be
think
hanging out in Europe together as
yeah.
well at WordCamp Europe. So that'll be fun. Wish you were coming.
No, I wish I was too, but that's another story for another day. So that's awesome, and I'm glad that's worked out. And you know, of course, you've just come out of the Adirem Summit, which was
Mm-hmm.
a big undertaking. You and I were on at the time of this record. We were on This Week in WordPress with Nathan Wrigley about a week ago or 2 weeks
We
ago.
were.
Yeah, which
Mm-hmm.
was
Yeah.
you
We're
Nathan
like
I.
BFFs now, Rob.
Yeah, it's
We're
true.
together all the time.
You
Yeah.
Nathan I and Michelle actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
So the,
yeah, it's a good time. It's fun to get on and talk shop and talk about what's going on in the world of WordPress. Geek out with our fellow geeks, you know.
yeah, instead of our clients and our customers for a change.
I know.
So I wish you really well with that new role, and
Thanks. I'm super pumped about it. Yeah.
I'm sure. And let's jump into your partner in an agency with FocusWP, right?
Hmm.
And your partner, if I recall right, not to toot my wonderful city, is from Toronto
Hmm.
as well. Tom.
He is. He is. And I don't know. I'm confused about your stories of all these mean tricks you're playing because the Canadian I know in Toronto is the nicest human ever.
No, thanks, Tom. Yeah,
He's Tom, yeah, Tom Jensen. He is a lovely guy, and he's the yin to my yang. So
yeah,
we make a great team. Focus WP. For those of you listening who don't know, it's a white label outsourcing company. So we have 6 teams. We have development, design, copywriting, video editing, SEO, and VAs. So we have all these teams, and basically it's like you get an instant staff for your company. So you don't have to do any of the HR stuff, any of the hiring, firing, training, whatever. You can just sign up, send in a ticket, and boom, it gets done. So that's the model. Tom and I built this because we both come from the agency space and are actually still in the agency space. We both have our own agencies as well. And this was something we wished we had, so we made it.
yeah.
And but anyway, yeah, so he handles all the operations and I handle the marketing and the front of house stuff. So I'm the one out on the podcasts and the summits and giving talks and in the Facebook groups and all that stuff, and which he would just blow his brains out. And he handles all of the like automations and the tech stuff and figuring out how to connect all the bits and pieces so that it all runs smoothly, which makes me want to blow my brains out. So we're perfect. It's a perfect match.
What is the one thing that agencies should outsource that they don't?
They should
If
have
you,
somebody mow their lawn because who has time for that?
I love
Plus,
it.
it's so hot here. No, I'm just kidding. I have a lot of thoughts on that, and there is not a one size fits all answer. I actually teach a little method for doing this, where you sort of make like a little matrix, and you figure out because there's multiple factors. The things that you should outsource are the things to make it as simple as possible. The things that you hate doing and you're not very good at.
Yeah.
So for me, the super easy answer to that question is finance. I'm not good with the books and I hate doing it. So that's super clear thing to outsource. It gets a little more murky when it's something for me like graphic design. I love doing it, but I'm not very good.
Yeah.
So then you have some decisions to make, right? So the idea is that you stay focused on your actual zone of genius, the stuff that you're really good at and that you enjoy doing, because we put a lot of our lives and ourselves into our businesses. Like, if you want to be miserable at work, you can go work for somebody else. If you're running your own show, don't you want to be like happy? Don't you want to get up and feel excited about what you have to do that day?
Mhm.
So you're in charge of that. That's the great news about being an entrepreneur and a founder and a business owner. You can choose what you do. So, if we can choose wisely, then we can run our businesses more efficiently and effectively as well.
Yeah. I always joke in my business the two things I hate doing outside of some tech stuff is the accounting, like you. I have an
Mm-hmm.
account, and then it's the legal crap, which I don't want to go anywhere near.
Right.
So
Yeah.
and the problem is a lot of agency owners, especially when they're starting out, and I see this even with clients of mine, they try to do too much. They're trying to run their business, whether it's a store, maintain their website, and do all that. And I look at them and say, but isn't your time better spent doing something else than updating a website? Like, really? And they
Yep.
look at me and say, but I'm saving money. I said, actually, you're losing money. What's your
Right.
time worth to you? X dollars an hour. Well, if that
Mm-hmm.
was all taken care of for you, wouldn't you be better off in half the time? You know,
It's
and
a process for folks to get their head around that. And the funny thing is that we as agency owners, as web developers or whatever, particular area of the industry, we teach that and preach that to our clients, but we're really bad at accepting it ourselves.
oh yeah,
And I have a little theory on. I mean, I think it's part of it is as entrepreneurs, like the brain type that makes you an entrepreneur rather than just going and getting a job and working for somebody else. You're the person that wants to figure it out.
yep,
You can have a vision of something and you're going to figure out how to get there. And that's why if you've ever had, we've all had this scenario where we've delegated something and that it bounces back to us, right? And what
mhm,
do? We figure it out.
yep.
And so the idea is like, well, okay, we got to delegate to people who can figure stuff out for you. But like that's just our brain type. That's how we work. And so I think sometimes even like the business owners that we're dealing with as clients, sometimes they have that same mentality. And it is a big adjustment to switch that off kind of, or to like understand that you don't actually have to do all the things.
It's true. And one thing I learned a long time ago, because I come out of a big corporate environment in healthcare, and in that environment, I was running like multi-million dollar projects. I realized back then that what you need to do is build a team,
Yeah.
and you don't have to do it all yourself. You'll pull your hair out. And
Hmm.
I can remember going back to like 1999, and we're dating ourselves, the year of Y2K projects. And I ran Y2K projects. And I have to tell you, even not doing it all back then, I was working 70 hours a week because of government
Oh,
deadlines and all kinds of stuff, right? And I had
I
to
can't
take,
work 70 hours a week, Rob. I need too much sleep.
yeah, I'm sure.
I'm tired. I need a lot of sleep. It's a
But
burden.
those days, that was an exceptional year because of government
Yeah.
timelines, government funding. The biggest joke was all you had to do was claim it was for a Y2K project, and over
Yeah.
time you'd get approved by nothing. Like, it was just
Exactly.
unreal. But
And then it was all much ado about nothing in the end.
well, I think because we did all the work, not because it was all not to do about nothing. If we hadn't done the work, I don't think it. I think it could have been a to do about a lot of things, right?
It could have been much ado about something.
Yeah, it's a darned if you do and a darned if you don't scenario kind
Hmm.
of deal. So anyway, so he I think you kind of gotta, as an agency owner, you gotta kind of let go a little bit and say, I don't want to do this, or I'm not good at it, or I don't have
Hmm.
time to do it. And that's where something like Focus WP comes into play, where you
Yeah, for
say,
sure.
"Oh, do it for me." Like, I can
Yeah.
tell
And
you, go ahead.
sorry, go ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Then no problem. The number one things I see agency owners not liking to do is WordPress patching and security updates. I hate to tell you.
Hmm.
And we were
That's
talking.
actually that was our bread and butter. That's how we started Focus WP, was doing maintenance,
Yep.
care plans and stuff like that. We keep the price just rock bottom so
Mhm.
that there's plenty of room for our customers to mark it up and still make recurring revenue. And then we just systematize and automate as much as we can while still having human beings, keeping an eye on things. But we did all that. And then we, we started to realize like once we had that relationship with the agencies, that trust, and we were already in their sites anyway, we had access to everything. People started saying like, well, could you build this out for me? Or would you be able to do that? Or do you guys know anybody who does these things? And it just started to be like, it was so obvious that so many folks were looking for a trusted resource because
Yes.
there's resources. Like you go into any Facebook group and do a search and you will find multiple questions on, does anybody know a good VA? What copyright are you using? What are you getting for design? Like all of the things. And you get into this position where the time involved in the research and hiring and training, and you start to say like, I could have just done it myself, which is true, but also flawed reasoning. It's also difficult. I mean, it's because then you just have to continue doing it yourself if you never make that step. So we kind of did a shortcut where you can sort of just, like I was always trying to come up with like a slogan or a campaign or something where it was like just add water kind of a thing where it's like you have an instant team that you just show up. But I couldn't like a ramen, like you just pour in the boiling water and you've got dinner, it was like something like that. But I never could quite make that work. If anybody has any ideas, hit me up. But yeah, that's basically the concept. Is it like we handle all of those ugly bits and you just get to have people to give orders to.
And it's funny because when you go to the groups and you start, and I don't care if it's Facebook, if it's the Twitter chats that go on every day, you're not a big Twitter gal, so I can say that. Right?
I'm not. I'm trying again.
Yeah, we'll help. I'll help you. That's another story.
Okay.
I need to
Yeah.
get you and Nathan Wrigley in the same room, and then because
Oh yeah, he hates it too.
he
Yeah.
hates it too. And then there's LinkedIn, and it's funny because we talk about trusted sources. About 8 months ago, actually, it's been about 6 months. I had LinkedIn come to me and say, "Would you co-manage this new LinkedIn group, which is the WordPress product community group? That's actually a
Nice.
LinkedIn sanction group, and we're just
Whoa.
under 8,800 members right now. And it's unreal. Ever since I took on that group, the other co-managers, Courtney Robertson, for those who don't know, Courtney's a developer advocate over at GoDaddy and a good friend. And
What's the group called, Robert?
WordPress product community.
I'm googling you right now.
I will, if you, I will, I'll send you a link for after record. But the
Hmm.
key is, we've managed to keep it clean. But it's interesting. Ever since I've taken on that group, I've had more PMs come my way than ever before
Hmm.
because
I just
they,
joined.
yeah, they figure you are a trusted source, and who you work with is interesting when we talk about trust. It's
Hmm.
not about the product anymore. It's all about liking who you work with and trusting them and why.
For sure.
And
Yeah.
most people don't realize you're actually selling yourself, not the product anymore. Yeah,
It's very
like,
true.
yeah,
Now you have to back that up
yep,
with the skills. But yeah, I mean, especially in a market like that, like not like WordPress, it's so vast and so huge. And developers, for example, if you're looking, like for a code monkey, they're really a dime a dozen, but sometimes you need something that's a little bit more than those dime a dozen options, so and how do you sort through them really? Like,
yep.
if you ever have you ever put a post on Facebook about like, hey, I'm looking for a dev for this project, and then like your inbox explodes and you just want to cry because you don't know how to get through them, you
I
know what
get,
I mean? It's like, so
I,
how do you rank and how do you sort those? So sometimes, even if you're not working with somebody that you have a relationship with, if you can get that recommendation, that's worth its weight in gold.
Yeah, and frankly, it's all about. I don't even answer those type of posts when somebody says, "Oh, I need a security expert." I never throw my way
Hmm.
in the hand, and I'll
Yep.
tell you why I don't. The number one is if
Because
they
you're
don't.
already independently wealthy and you don't need the work,
No, not true at
obviously.
all.
Oh, okay.
You're trying. You're really trying today. That's not true at all. It's if they're asking and they're not coming to me directly, what's the point of throwing my name in the hat? Because I truly believe marketing and who you work with is all based on long-term relationships.
Yep.
And I'm awful. I actually gear marketing very much to like somebody going on a date. You don't
Hmm.
just jump into bed with the first person you saw. And it
At
doesn't,
least you're not supposed to.
yep. So why would I do that marketing?
Hmm.
I always draw that analogy. Marketing and sharing services is like dating. It takes time.
It does. And, meeting a random stranger is a lot different than going on a date with somebody that your friend hooked you up with,
Yeah. Yeah.
that carries a lot more potential and a lot more confidence if you're going on a setup.
And in our business, I think that's really true.
For
More than
sure.
a
Yeah.
lot of people think. I mean, if you spend time in the groups and you spend time on LinkedIn and you spend time on Twitter, we all know who the big players are in our industry. We really do.
Hmm.
Most of
Yeah. I
us,
mean, besides you and I, we
yeah,
know them,
yeah.
you know.
But we know who's with what hosting companies and who I can go
Yeah.
to. And I've got
Hmm.
a long list of people depending on what the question is. If I get stumped, who I'll go to, friends or
Hmm.
colleagues, and I'll say, hey, do you have a solution? And I do that a lot because I think I'm really good at what I do, but I don't think I know everything. And I'm the first to admit that.
Yeah.
So I think that's a big deal. Um, as we move on in the WordPress ecosystem, we're kind of talking about the whole mess with full site editing, with
Mm.
blocks, with page builders. It's
Hmm.
getting interesting. Uh, do you
It
think
is interesting.
do you think blocks is a dead issue?
Mm. You know, I'm not really on the Gutenberg train, but
Okay.
not because I'm anti.
Okay.
I I don't I sometimes I just don't even talk about it because it's such a hot issue. It's just like it's like everybody wants to take sides on it or make your actions like it's almost like political or something, where it's like, oh, you don't support this, well then you're on that team, or you do support it, then you're on this team. And I'm not that kind of girl. I feel like I can have a broad range of thoughts and feelings on such matters. But
Well,
I um I use I'm a Divi girl. I am on Divi Chat, the podcast, every week, and I've started with Divi before before Divi was in existence. I ended up at Elegant Themes because I was looking for a template, like a theme
I
company that
think
had
you.
multiples.
Yep.
Because so this is a number of years ago, and I was doing contract work and freelance work and stuff, or just about to start my agency, and I was wasting way too much time. Like I knew that I didn't need to start from scratch, so I would grab a theme or a template that was close, and then I would modify it. But every single one was built different, and it would take me so long to get up to speed with everything and figure out how it was built. I was just so frustrated. It wasn't being profitable. So I found Elegant Themes, and I was like, this is amazing because they had like 25 different themes, and you could modify them, and it was easy once you understood how they were built. And then Divi came out, and I was like, what? This changes the game, And it really did. I mean, like, I think WP Bakery was around before that, but really, like, those guys, like, it changed the game.
Yep.
Now it's like when people say they build websites for a living, you don't even say like what language. Like that used to be a programming question, like, oh, you're a developer, what language? Now you say like, oh, what builder do you use? It's become this new, like, that's where we're at. And so I started with Divi, and I just, as the other ones started bubbling up to the surface and being developed and things, I just made a conscious choice. Like, I'm such a shiny object victim that I was like, you know what? I can't do that because the learning curve and the cost associated with getting the licenses for everything, getting all the add-on plugins, learning all the different things. I just made the decision. I'm like, I'm just going to do this one.
Yep.
And that was with my agency. Now with Focus WP, because of the nature of that industry, we serve people with any builder. And so I've learned, through all of that, I can tinker with all of them now. But I still stand by that. Like, I don't preach that Divi is the end all be all. I love it, and I also hate it some days, but it's like they all are like that. Every single one of them, Elementor, Beaver Builder, whatever, they all have their pros and cons. And I think it's similar with Gutenberg, only Gutenberg is in infancy still, like the blocks and the full site editing. It's all just still in its infancy. So it's going to be great. It's going to be great. But I also think like a lot of folks in the WordPress space are speaking about this as if it's a brand new concept, and it just isn't. Like all of the builders are already doing all the things that Gutenberg is trying to do. And there's, you could talk for hours on the concepts of what's going to happen to the builders, or or is Gutenberg following or leading, or what's the blah blah. I mean, there's so much that can be discussed, and it's all very polarizing. People have very strong feelings about all of that, and I sort of have the same attitude that I've had since the beginning. Like, this is what I'm using. Oh, you're using blocks? That's cool. Great. Awesome. Good for you. Like, that's a beautiful site you've built with it. Like I just don't have the mental or emotional energy or the time to get involved in all of the arguing and fussing about it.
It's actually excruciating. It's funny. We talk about page builders, and I actually started off with Headway as a page builder. If you remember the old Headway.
I don't remember that.
Yeah, it was a block-based page builder. It's not around anymore. And then from Headway, I kind of went 3 spots: Beaver Builder, Elementor,
yep,
and an all-in-one ThemeForest theme that's the #1 selling theme on ThemeForest of all time, called Aveda, which has its own page builder built into it.
Yep.
And
I've never gotten good at Aveda. That one frustrates me. I've never learned it enough to know it. But I'm not anti.
Yeah, my agency site sat on Aveda till last September, just because I was too lazy to move it to Beaver Builder or Elementor. Like, why bother?
So what'd you go with when you moved it?
To blocks. So I went.
You went to blocks.
I went all in with Cadence theme and Cadence blocks.
Nice.
I moved it. I moved it over September to November, because I did what I always say on this podcast: please don't move a big site on a live site. Bad idea. Don't listen to me. I had. We
are our own worst customers.
Yes, that is true. I had 2 or 3 podcasts at the time going up a week, so to keep a dev site and a prod site in sync, I said, no, I'm not doing this. I'll do it in stages. And for those curious how it was done, in an earlier podcast, I sat down with Birgit Polyhak and Matthias Ventura, who's the lead Gutenberg lead, and we actually talked about it for this podcast. We had a conversation. And it was an amazing learning experience. There's no better way to get your feet wet with something new than try new approach. But at times it was frustrating. I have a lot of respect for the team over at Stellar, the Cadence team. Shout out to Ben, the lead developer, and certainly my good friend Kathy Zant, who does marketing over there. They're amazing. The support out of there was great. And then the only other real add-on I use is a little thing called Editor Plus by Extendify, which gives you some cool little styling options. And that's about it. I'm basically running stock, and it's worked out really well. I'm building a WooCommerce site out in Gutenberg as we speak, so it's an nice, interesting approach. But that said, like you, I'm not in the I hate page builder camp. I'm in the use what works for you camp, and that you can learn it well in the time that you've got, and use that.
Right. Serve your clients well. Build good sites. Build sites that make them money, that are accessible. Like, do good things, and like quit getting so worked up about what everybody else is using.
And at the end of the day, I don't think clients even care anymore.
Not in the least.
That a website is WordPress based, unless you're taking them on for a security care plan. That's different. But to build the site, I don't think they care what the back end is. I don't think
Mm-mm.
they care how it's managed. I don't think they care where it is, as long as it provides what the client needs. So I think
For sure.
the problem we've got in our industry and in our community, we sell WordPress as a solution. And I don't think that's what you should be selling. You should be selling the results as a solution, personally.
Oh yeah. I don't even mention WordPress when I'm selling sites unless the client is savvy in that area or asks specifically, but I can't honestly remember the last time they did.
Or if they need a security care plan, because that obviously impacts. But yeah,
Yeah.
for a build, I don't think the client cares. And no matter how many times I hear from my clients, "Oh, give me access to the dashboard." See, so what
Mhm.
I always do is I don't give them admin access, and they'll ask for it, and I just don't care. And I don't give them admin access, and they'll never log into Access Dashboard. I'll get an email saying, "I know it's going to cost me. Could you do this, please?"
Mhm. Right.
Because they're not going to do it. It comes back to what we said: if you're not good at it or don't like doing it, don't do it. Right?
Yeah.
So
I mean, I don't it depends. I don't lock my clients out of their site just because of the proverbial bus that might hit me one day, but I make sure that they have all of their access, but and the clients I work with, honestly, like they don't want to do it.
no,
They're not interested, and I go by a sort of like educational method of showing them that.
yeah,
I'll be like, sure, here's how you do it. It's so easy. You just log in here, you go to there, click this, do that, blah, blah, blah. Don't forget to optimize your images first and da 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 da. If you just explain to them like all of the steps that are involved, then A, they realize like, whoa, there's more to it than I realized. And I probably just want you to do it. And also B, they realize like, wow, they're good. They know all this stuff so quickly.
yeah.
So
Some of them are really amazing. I've got a political client, and Marilyn is just wonderful. She just, unless she gets really stuck, she'll just go and do it. And it's like,
mhm.
really? And if she's not sure, I'll get an email saying, "Rob, I'm kind of stuck. Can you give me a couple extra steps or call me?" And
Yeah, I mean, like if you're trying to like hold things hostage so that your clients will pay you to do stuff, like you're not gonna you might make money, but you're not gonna have great success. That's not gonna be the kind of people that your clients are referring to all their friends and family. You're gonna be limited in your ultimate success if you really just try and help people and educate them and let them, if they want to go and do it, fine. If as long as they understand the risks, you break it, you got to pay me to fix it, or you can pay me to do it in the first place. What? It doesn't really matter to me. Like, I don't, people seem to get, I don't know. It just seems like people get worked up about everything, though, doesn't it,
I
Rob?
know. And then you've always got that one client who breaks it and then says, "It's your fault."
Hmm.
Been there,
Oh,
done
that's
it.
why we have logging software on all our sites.
Well, logging software and contracts, right?
Yes,
I,
for
I
sure.
actually have a clause in all my contracts that says if the client breaks it, it's billable at an hourly rate. And
Yeah.
I had a number of years ago, had a client go off to a conference. They didn't want to pay for the change, which I could have done. They tried to do it themselves. They installed a plugin that caused the server to take too many resources so bad that the host shut it down.
Mm.
And then they screamed and said, "Our site's down." And I said, "Well, the logs show that you went and installed this, and this. So I got to remove this." "No, you can't." I said, "Okay. So we'll just leave it down till you get back from a conference." And they were at a conference trying to pitch something to the government.
Of course, yeah.
And the website, I just let it sit there. I sent them a quote and estimate and said to bring it online. Here's your cost, by the way, 50% up front. When you start that, we'll start fixing it. And the next thing I know, I got a letter from their paralegal saying, "You're under violation of contract." And this is the old, "your lawyer's bigger than my lawyer" game.
Hmm.
Sent them back a letter saying, "No, here's the clauses you violated. Let's deal with it." And they dealt with it. And
See, you can have that kind of confidence when you don't trust yourself to do your own contracts. You outsource that.
yeah, that's right. And it's so funny. And I don't say don't work with the client, but sometimes you get that client, and you know this, you've been doing this long
Mm,
enough, that you
I
don't
have.
want to work with. They become a pain. They look good, and then
Hmm.
something changed, and then you kind of look at and say, maybe I shouldn't renew this client, right? And we've
Hmm.
all done that. And I don't even, my old strategy used to be I would take my pricing, and if the client was a pain, I'd add 4 times to it.
You
That
got to be careful doing that though, because sometimes they'll say yes,
I know.
and then you have
that's,
to.
that's where I was going. So
Yeah.
now I just say no. And they look at me and say, "What do you mean no?" And I said, "No. Can you explain that?" "Nope, don't want to." I said, "No." "No." I said, "I'll give you a couple options of where you can go, some people you can talk to, but I'm not doing it." So the
It
key is
takes.
don't leave them.
It honestly takes a real, like, a maturity in business to get to that point, though.
Yeah.
And and even sometimes down the road, you know, we can get a little. I don't know that greed is the right word, but you can start to see the dollar signs, or you can start to see the certain things, and you don't trust your gut. But really, it's very difficult. There's so few people that can do it early on,
Yep.
where they can say like, "Nope, I see these flags." No matter how many times you hear other people tell the story, I feel like a lot of times those are just those kind of lessons that are hard earned. Like you kind of have to learn those
Yep.
the hard way. You have to walk that road and realize like, oh yeah, boy, I never want to work with that kind of client again.
Yeah. I went through it recently. I had a client who was making $30,000 US a day on his e-commerce site.
Okay.
And where did he want to put the site? On cheap hosting, because his previous web developer told him that all he needed was $15 a month web hosting.
Hmm.
And then he came to me and said, "My site's running slow." I said, "Yeah, of course you're running terrible hosting when you got 200 WooCommerce products, 200. And
Mm.
don't you think at making $30,000 a day, you should do something about this? Don't you think a good investment to protect your business would be good?" "Oh, my new web guy's good. I'm not doing it." His site, and I wasn't doing work for him at the time, went down the Friday of the Canadian Thanksgiving weekend last year.
Mm.
He called his new web developer. He basically gave him crap, called me and left me probably 20 messages, and my voicemail said I was out of town for the weekend, which I was. Holiday weekend, I wasn't here. And he calls me Tuesday and said, "How long to take it up?" And I said, "First thing you got to do is agree to move this to premium hosting for WooCommerce. Second thing you need to do is, if it's worth $30,000 a day to you, you got to think about what level of support you need and how much support you want." This particular client, believe it or not, is on a service contract for the site that's worth 50 grand a year. And you say, "Yeah,
Nice.
it's a lot of money." Well, when you're making $30,000 a day, it's not a lot of money.
Right.
So what sometimes people need to look at is, what's the site worth to them? What's the service you're providing worth to them? And if it's not there, what will it cost them?
Well, I mean, pricing is such a fascinating subject across any industry,
Yeah.
because what makes something have value,
Mm.
um, and so a lot of times we can. Like, this is such a random story, but I remember looking for. I was gonna buy a toothbrush. This is like, I don't know, 15 years ago or something like
Oh
that.
God.
And I'm looking at these toothbrushes, and I'm like, well, this one looks good, but it's like $10,
Yep.
and these ones are all only like $2. Like, I can't, like, why would I do that? Whatever. Anyway, like, fast forward a while later, I had a conversation with my brother super randomly about toothbrushes, and he was like, "Oh yeah, I replace mine like every month." And I'm like, "What?" And he goes, "Well, they're only like $10."
I do too.
Right. But like, the concept there is like, I was like, "Oh, I'm not spending $10," because it was positioned right next to things that were a lot cheaper. And then in his mind, it's only $10. Such a like that's such a no-brainer to just do that regularly. And it was just like, I don't know, like the value thing. What makes something worth the price tag. And so if they had somebody else say like, this is a good value to spend $15 a month on your hosting, and then you're trying to tell them to spend $300 a month, like that's just a complicated shift
Yep.
in their value perception. And so sometimes it's just our job to help them make that journey in understanding, like to get from point A to point B in that value comprehension of what it is. And it could be because they were misinformed. It could be because of price positioning. It could be because of, GoDaddy commercials that they see on television or something like that, because that's the only hosting company that ever for most people, that's the only hosting company they've ever heard of, because they're
And
the only ones
and
that
sometimes
advertise to the mass public. So there's all these different reasons. So sometimes I think like it's not that they don't value their own business, or they don't care about their business, or they don't think what we do is important. It's just that they haven't been properly educated
yep.
and given the time to like adjust their value system
Yep.
to understand and come to terms with what something is really worth.
And sometimes it's the what I call the experience factor. So if you're not feeling it, when you go on vacation and you come home and you start showing all your friends your vacation photos and they all look at you and say, they're nice,
Mm-hmm.
it's because they weren't there and they're not
Right.
feeling what you felt. Or I like to tell the story. I'm a sports collectible guy, junkie.
Hmm.
And a number of years ago, I went to a sports show in Toronto, and the headline guest was Joe Theismann, Hall of Fame quarterback, played for the Toronto Argos in the CFL, then went to the Washington, then Redskins of the NFL.
Mm-hmm.
And the super ticket that you could spend $650 for was to have Joe Theismann throw you a ball.
Hmm.
And not only did he throw you the ball, then he took the ball, he threw you, autographed the ball, took some pictures, and you were done. And people say,
Did you do it?
Of course, because it was about the experience factor.
Yeah.
I
Well,
can say I actually...
and your value system.
And my value
So that's
system.
valuable to you.
Yep.
That would be worthless to me.
Yeah. Whereas,
like, I wouldn't care.
Why do people go to concerts and sporting events, for example, and shows? It's the experience factor. You can watch the sporting event on TV, but it's about being there if that's what you're into. And that's the same thing as a business owner. It's what you're into. It's like what your experience factor is. Yeah.
Yeah. I with my agency, I was doing a lot of work with the craft brewery space.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually, speaking of like the value system and stuff, I made a new rule that I would never again choose a niche that was based on a hobby, because the owners of the breweries are very passionate about beer.
Yes.
They love to brew beer. And a lot of times, not all, but a lot of breweries that and they're everywhere now. They're everywhere. But if you meet the owner and whatever, a lot of times it's somebody who was brewing beer in their garage and their friends were like, you should sell this. And they end up starting a brewery and going down this road. So that's where they came from. They came from a hobby to a business. And I found that those business owners were much more difficult to convert on that value scale, as far as like what should cost money and what shouldn't.
Yeah.
So they had because they were making their decisions from their gut or from their heart, however you want to refer to it, rather than like from a logical place, not from their brain. So you could say like, oh yeah, you need to market and blah, blah, blah. You need to do this. You need to have a website where people can find your, whatever, whatever, all the things you're telling them. And they're like, and they wouldn't even spend, $50 a month on a website, sort of like these cheap things, because it's not like they're not there.
And they're not passionate
in the comprehension of the value of what it is. They're very passionate, actually. They're passionate about their beer, but it's the perceived value of our services and stuff was a much more difficult sell than other industries where people go into it with more of a business, like profit mindset.
Yep.
which
And
it was very educational and interesting to me. Like, it was fascinating when I was deep in and I was like, why am I struggling in this niche? Like, why has it become hard? I started focusing on it because I just, by chance had several of those clients already.
yeah,
Just from word of mouth or this or that. But then as I tried to really grow in the niche is when I realized, like, why do I feel like I'm working, like pushing uphill this whole time? And I like analyzed it. And that's what I came to realize is like, oh, because they're not grasping the value because they're basing their decisions on emotion rather than on like the logical arguments that I'm presenting.
yeah. And the problem is when you base all your decisions on emotion, it kills you. I mean, high-end retail is a good example. Like, how many times does somebody go into the store? And I watch it all the time with friends and, especially female friends. And they walk out and it's like, I just bought a $300 dress. Oh, you did you? Why? Oh, I liked it. That's emotion, right? It's like,
Yeah.
really? So what practical use? Oh, I might wear it to a party this summer. Oh, that's nice. I usually say, don't
And what's wrong with that, Rob?
give me the $300 and forget the dress.
Well, I mean, that dress just wasn't your style. That's all.
Yeah.
It would look terrible on you. Let's be honest.
Yeah, that too. I don't go that way. So. It's all good. Yeah, it's true though. You're so right. Before we kind of wrap up, and I know you've done a lot of marketing stuff. What's the number one
Mhm.
thing you find that people have a tough time marketing in their business?
What it What's the question? What is the hardest thing for people to market?
Yeah, or they don't like
Or
doing in marketing.
um it depends on the person.
Yeah.
You've got a lot of folks who it's very difficult for them to put themselves in the spotlight.
Hmm.
There's a lot of people who don't like to be on camera. They don't want to be out there doing videos and
Hmm.
lives and reels and all that.
Yeah.
And so it's difficult for them in that way. There's a lot of folks that are insecure about their skill set
Hmm.
and things. That's something that we help people with. In fact, that's one of the funnest like light bulb moments I get to share with people with Focus, because I also do a little thing where I do a free proposal pep talk. Everybody gets one for free. If anybody has a proposal and you need somebody to look at it, you call me and I'll get on a call with you. We'll spend 20 minutes and I'll go through your little proposal pep talk. Say that 5 times fast. And then the first one's free because after that, you'll be waiting to pay me to do it because you realize you made more money the first time. But the people will show it and I'll say like, no, you should be charging this for it. And they're like, I could never. Nobody would pay me pay me that much to build them a website. And I'm like, yeah, because this is with Focus clients. And I'm like, yeah, but you're not building it. These super talented developers are. And they're like, oh, well then, yeah, it's totally worth that. So people still have this insecurity, these like imposter syndrome. It just, it, even with experienced folks, it resurfaces and comes back to get you when you least expect it. So that's another one, like that sort of insecurity about things. But the other real issue is something that I've struggled with. You probably have too. It's just that we're so busy working
Yeah.
in the business instead of on the business that we just don't have the time, or we don't make the time to do the things we need to do to market.
Yeah, and that's, Frank, one of the reasons why I do this podcast. It's a marketing tool. I'd be
Hmm.
lying. I'd be lying if I didn't. The other reason is
Yeah.
networking. The third reason is people like you. I get to spend an hour with. I
Yeah.
mean,
It's fun.
it's
It's
fun,
fun hanging out. Yeah.
and people don't get that, and they say, "Well, you spend the time," and I said, "Yeah, but it's important to me." And I always tell business owners the best time to market is when your business is flourishing and driving, so that when you hit a lull, you're ready to go.
Hmm.
They don't see that, especially retailers and especially mom and pop retailers. Oh, we're too busy right now. We don't need to post pictures out there. We don't need to do this. Now's the
Right.
time.
Hmm.
Because what happens when you hit your slow season?
Yeah.
And that's
Yeah.
a
You got
hard
to keep
lesson to
filling the
teach.
pipe.
It's filling the pipe, and it's hard. And then you do what so many freelancers do, where you chase job after job after job,
Hmm.
and that's
Well,
all.
and there's tons of folks in our industry too. Like, we need to drink our own Kool-Aid.
Yep.
more, because we can teach this to other people, but when it comes to ourselves, we are absolutely our worst customers. We're not, we do the same thing. Like, we'll tell people like, oh, you need to hire us to do this, this, and this. And then when it comes time for us to say like, oh, maybe we should outsource some social media stuff and have some people posting on our website or blogging for us or whatever, so that, because we're so busy, and it's like, it's just hard for us to do it. I don't know.
I know. Steph, thanks for the amazing conversation today.
This has been fun. I can't believe the time has flown.
It always flies with you.
Aww.
So, if somebody wants to find out about Bertha.ai or your agency, FocusWP, where's the best two places to go? And how to get a hold of you?
You can go to Bertha.ai, and my info's all in the about page and everything. You can reach out there. You could sign up to get 1,000 words a month for free. There's a free level that's awesome, so you can just figure it all out. And Bertha works right within WordPress, so you can just generate text, and boom, it's just already in the site. And then if you want to outsource some stuff, come hit me up at FocusWP.co. And I also have on there, I don't know if you've seen my site. I think you have, but
I have.
I got this kick when I was creating this brand, that I put everything in 3D, because they're saying like focus and it looks kind of blurry. So anyway, because the site is mostly in 3D, for anybody out there who hasn't seen it yet, you can go to focuswp.co/3D-glasses. But there's little CCAs all over the site. You'll see it. And you can fill in a form, and I will literally mail you 3D glasses and stickers.
And check it out and have some fun with Stephanie.
Yeah, it's fun. Yeah,
it's fun. Thanks, Stephanie.
Send you a little handwritten. Yeah, thanks so much for having me, Rob.
Always a pleasure.
I'll see you around.
You will. We'll talk soon. Have a great day.
Bye.
Bye. This episode of the SDM Show is sponsored by Stunning Digital Marketing, the agency to handle all your WordPress website security needs. Go on over to stunningdigitalmarketing.com and find out how we can help you secure your website so you no longer have an issue with backups, being hacked, or your website being compromised. That's stunningdigitalmarketing.com. A very special thank you to my good friend Stephanie for joining me on this edition of the SDM Show. Thank you for listening to this edition of the SDM Show. The SDM Show is brought to you by Rob Cairns and Stunning Digital Marketing. For more information about Rob Cairns and Stunning Digital Marketing, go to stunningdigitalmarketing.info. From here, you can connect to us on social media, go to our website, and even go to the podcast to subscribe. This podcast is dedicated to my late father, Bruce Cairns. Dad, I miss you very much. Keep your feet on the ground. Keep reaching for the stars. Make your business succeed.